The Amanda Show gave us some amazing segments, like Judge Trudy,
Bring in the dancing lobsters,
Tony Pajamas,
what's that
For being 80!
for? Okay.
Block Blister,
Much better!
The Girls' Room.
I like eggs!
But do you remember the show within the show, Moody's Point? Ah yes, teen dramas of the early 2000s. You had Degrassi, One Tree Hill, Gilmore Girls, The Secret Life of the American Teenager, Dawson's Creek, and Moody's Point, which wasn't necessarily a show you could seek out at the time, as it aired as a segment on The Amanda Show on Nickelodeon, which if you aren't familiar with The Amanda Show, where the hell have you been? But it was a sketch comedy show starring Amanda Bynes that had such goofy, weird, gross, and over-the-top humor, and it parodied a lot of real shows that were out at the time. And this show also introduced us to Drake Bell and Josh Peck, who would go on to have their own show, which shaped an entire generation's humor. But at the beginning of season 2 of The Amanda Show, viewers were given a random trailer for a show called Moody's Point.
In a world where nothing seems right,
I'll never find anyone who can understand my tortured teenage soul.
Which is a direct parody of Dawson's Creek.
Dawson had a creek. Moody has a point.
And really unlike anything The Amanda Show had aired before. Now, I don't necessarily think that viewers were turned off by this trailer. I mean, it seemed very satirical, which the Amanda Show viewers were used to, but it was just something different. And you could tell that Nickelodeon was preparing viewers for it. I mean, even the monologue that Amanda Bynes gave before premiering the first episode seemed very out of the ordinary.
Right now, you're gonna see something brand new and totally different.
Like throughout the Amanda Show, segments weren't really introduced in a way where the show kind of comes to a halt and is like, here's something and I hope you like it. And they do this for essentially every episode that Moody's Point is featured. Again, gearing the audience up for what feels less like an Amanda Show episode riddled with sketches, but more so an episode of Moody's Point. I mean, these episodes were 10 to 12 minutes long and even had commercial breaks. And you wouldn't even come back to the Amanda Show, you would come right back into an episode of Moody's Point. Hey, kinda like this, telling you to like and subscribe if you like reminiscing on old shows and toys.
And now back to Moody's Point.
But fans did seem to enjoy Moody's Point, though what was it really and why did it air the way it did? Well, you see, Amanda Bynes was starting to break out of the Nickelodeon mold of being the overly goofy teen and wanted to step into some real-world acting gigs, and Moody's Point kind of serves as a way for her to do that by doing less studio-produced, performed-on-stage sketches and filming a pre-recorded series that could air so that Bynes could continue her want of booking bigger TV and film roles. Though this show had another point. By serving as a backdoor pilot for the miniseries, meaning had it worked in the way the studio had hoped, this show would have become another Drake and Josh, iCarly, or Zoe 101, which the latter is kind of what Moody's Point turned into. Like, you may notice that Zoe 101 was kind of shot differently than other shows on Nickelodeon at the time, and that is because they still wanted to do a more teen-based drama, so they were able to test out what worked and didn't in Moody's Point, and then were able to develop it into something new. And you can see some of the similarities that Zoe 101 had its dramatic moments, only for them to be interrupted by some outrageous gag, which to be honest is kind of the only thing that carried over from Moody's Point. Zoe 101 was way less satirical and its own thing, which is probably what led to its success. Well, what even was Moody's Point, and what was it about? Well, the show opens on Moody, played by Amanda Bynes, being given a locket by her father, and we are given the first look into Moody's life.
I wish Mom was here.
Oh, sweetheart. If wishes were omelets, we'd all be filled with cheese and small pieces of ham.
Moody seems to be grieving her mother, and at this point in time, the show makes the audience think that Moody's mother might have passed, but no, she didn't. We learn later in that episode that her mom is actually stuck in a hot air balloon. Yep, perpetually stuck in a hot air balloon for the past 6 years. And throughout the series, we continue to cut to clips of her mom in the air calling out for Moody. But continuing on in that first episode, we meet more of Moody's friends. Spaulding, played by eventual SNL cast member Taran Killam, who is the stereotypical friend who has a crush on Moody, only for that to never be reciprocated. And I find it kind of funny these days that Killam was on it, because while I was rewatching Moody's Point, it kind of reminded me of the SNL sketch The Californians, that Killam also had a small role in, though that sketch was more soap opera rather than teen drama. But back to Moody's friends with Misty, who gets upset by really anything.
I have a birthday too, you know.
Yeah? In 7 months.
You're so hurtful!
And then there is also Bree, who I actually found to be the most normal person of this entire friend group, and maybe the entire series. And then there is Sternum, yep, like the bone, who is the sulking hot guy of the show, and Moody's love interest over her friend Spaulding.
Sternum, is anything wrong?
Is anything right?
Sternum always with the questions that make you think. And throughout this episode, we just follow a Moody trying to get through her birthday, who is, again, in constant grief over her mother, being triggered by any moment her mom is brought up, or at the sight or mention of a balloon. Even by the end of the episode, having her job shift from selling beepers.
Beeper polish.
Oh yeah, beeper polish to, yep, balloons, though having her job changing what it's selling is another ongoing gag of the show. And while Moody may feel some sort of way about it, we've got Sternum, and that guy just makes everything okay. And the show continues into the next episode, which focuses on Moody returning a VHS tape. Yep, a very simple premise that lets Moody learn
Just because a cat has kittens in the oven doesn't make them biscuits.
as Moody ends up returning the tape a minute late to, hey, recognize that set? Yep, this is the Block Blister set, which is definitely the type of Amanda Show nod that I like to see to remind us that we are still watching the Amanda Show. And what I also found funny about this episode is that when we first cut to the video rental scene, we see Beverly Ann Mitchell returning a tape, who you might recognize from another teen drama series, Seventh Heaven. But the video returning and then Misty not making the cheer team is the entire plot of the second episode, again making it seem like something as simple as a VHS rental is the end of the world for this moody teenager. Though the next episode seems to make a bit more sense for a teen's anxiety, as Moody is auditioning for a TV commercial, which she lands with Spaulding. And while some of the little asides in the show are mostly pointless, this one has Misty auditioning for the TV commercial as well, which is for a mouthwash company, and she ends up having a terrible allergic reaction to the mouthwash. But anywho, while on set, Spaulding accidentally pulls a light down onto his head, knocking him out, and my guy definitely has a pretty bad concussion after this, which all leads to you-know-who having to take his place. But then this episode ends pretty abruptly. Not really any lesson learned, and Spaulding interrupts Sternum and Moody's kiss for this commercial, which definitely would have added some new emotions at this point in the show. Though the next episode is where things really start to heat up. Spaulding is really trying to shoot his shot with Moody now, changing up his look and personality to be, well, more like Sternum. Though this kind of backfires as he's trying to be a tough guy and stand up to this 12-year-old kid who keeps going around spraying her with water from one of those prank cameras. And this kid ends up just beating the shit out of Spaulding. And after he gets beat up for the second time, Sternum comes in, says 3 words to the kid, and he stops. And by the end of the episode, Moody gently and unknowingly turns down Spaulding's advances on her, and literally right after that, with a simple
Sup?
Moody just goes in for a kiss. And really just poor Spaulding. But the next episode is probably the most memorable of the bunch, because Spaulding comes over to Moody's house with a gift for her dad, only for this to happen.
On the side.
I think if you were to ask someone what they remember from Moody's Point, it would definitely be her mom in that hot air balloon, and the fact that her dad ends up losing his big toe. And I mean both losing it off his body and also losing it in the house directly afterward, as Spaulding accidentally grabs an olive by mistake when leaving for the hospital. And even when they find the toe, Spaulding ends up accidentally giving it to a homeless person asking for change, which, just aside, this actor actually ends up playing Lubert on iCarly. So now Moody's father is big toeless, with an ongoing gag added of him being imbalanced without it. And this is really one of the first true plot points that happens on screen that gets carried over into the next episode, as it opens with her father attempting to glue the end of a hot dog to his foot as a replacement. And while the toe is still being discussed amongst Moody and her friends, this episode mainly focuses on Moody's school dance, as Spaulding messes up and asks someone else when he is trying to ask Moody, and then also Misty loses all of her hair with some remedy she found online. Though by the end of the episode, we do have a new location for the toe in the mouth of a dog who takes it from the homeless person. And then this last episode of Moody's Point opens on Spaulding and Moody wanting to donate their toe to her dad, in which a blood sample has to be taken from Moody to ensure that she and her father are related. And actually, while this is happening, Misty ends up getting a heart transplant with a baboon, who, yeah, ends up acting like a monkey throughout the episode. But Moody ends up not being her father's daughter, and was accidentally switched at birth. And we then find out that her real parents end up being the Flying Wurzburgs, a circus act, who come to meet Yolanda, Moody's real name, and she just ups and leaves. And then the real Moody walks in, who is, well, we'll never know, because that's where the show ends. Yep, Moody's Point ends on a massive cliffhanger. And the reason we never got another episode, The Amanda Show got canceled after this season. Oh, but I will say, the toe? The dog ran into a bunch of kids, who then attached it to a balloon, which then ended up in the hands of his wife in that hot air balloon. So at least there is some closure there. But this now begs the question of what would have happened, and as many forums online say, what was the point of Moody's Point? Well, firstly, I don't think there ever was a point. I think it was to show this moody teenager and over-exaggerate how everything seems like the end of the world, which a lot of the time at that age can seem that way, so I'll give them credit for that. But like the video rental episode is a perfect example of a pointless episode. Just nothing happens in it. She returns a VHS tape late. That's it. And obviously with The Amanda Show getting canceled, this show was put to bed. And sure, there was something there if it was reworked to become Zoe 101, but could it have worked as is? I don't really think so. These characters are just so one-dimensional and dumb. There would need to be a much bigger and better ongoing plot line. Like, I don't see Moody going on and on for another 10 minutes about not returning a VHS tape just so they can reach that 22-minute episode length. And as for what we think happened after this, well, nothing has ever been confirmed, so I imagine if it were to have come back, it would have just been Moody again. Probably the same sulking teen, just now relearning this world that she just walked into. Like, maybe her father would actually get that toe transplant. Maybe Spaulding might actually stand a chance. I don't know, but it is something that comes into my mind every now and then, especially what the status would be of her mother. Though these days, with Amanda Bynes not acting anymore, and of course the fallout of all the shows by that one Nickelodeon creator, I don't think we'll be getting a Moody's Point reunion conclusion movie coming to Paramount Plus anytime soon. But definitely leave a comment on what you thought of Moody's Point back in the day, because this one was a fun one to look back on. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss another nostalgic video. And as always, thanks for watching.
I got a toe, I got a toe, I got a toe.